When you feel like you're not doing as much as you want to do in a day, or feel like your day flies by, one of the most effective ways to identify the causes is tracking your time. It can give you data on how you spend your time, which you can use to optimize your day. And for some people, it's an essential habit to stay productive and get the most out of each day. Time tracking has never been my kind of thing, but I decided to do an experiment for 1 month where I tracked my activity. So in this video, I want to share the tool I used and how tracking your time can help you stay focused, motivated, and productive. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Shu. So it's been a little frustrating few weeks for me because I had many days where I felt I got nothing done. And at the end of each day in my bed, I was wondering, where did my time go? To understand why, I thought of tracking my time as a fun experiment because it might be cliche, but as people say, what gets measured gets managed. So if I want to improve something, the first step for me is to measure it, to quantify. It's the same reason why people get a fitness tracker when they want to get healthy. A tracker gives you quantitative data, which helps you become aware of your problems. With that feedback, you can take some actions to fix that problems. Now, how do we track our time? There are different tools we can use. You could keep a record on a notebook, which is similar to interstitial journaling that I talked about in a video before. This is a free option, but of course it's a little cumbersome and you probably forget to keep a record at some point. Similarly, many digital time tracking tools are manual, meaning you have to remember to log how you spend your time, which is actually why I hated time tracking. All those things considered, I decided to go with Rize. I actually used it for a few days for review a while ago and remembered it was such a beautiful design time tracker with lots of useful features. But like I said, there are a bunch of other time tracking tools too, such as Rescue Time, Timely, and Toggle. Each one is great, but for my purpose, Rize was perfect because it has automatic time tracking, useful charts to analyze how I spend my time, and a minimalist user interface that's easy to navigate, all of which are great for lazy people like me. So after tracking my time for 1 month, I noticed a few things that could be useful for you too. So first of all, I found out the culprits of stealing my time the most: Discord and the browser. Many people use some kinds of messaging apps like Slack and Discord on their laptop every day for work or personal conversation. Personally, I use Discord. It turns out I open it many times in a day, even during focus sessions. This type of context switching makes it much harder for you to regain the prior level of concentration. If you have a similar issue, I'd recommend turning off the notifications and choosing a specific time when you are allowed to check the new messages. Also, the other culprit is the browser. It seems I use it often to Google totally random things that pop up in my head. So things like, what is the difference between sea and ocean, or why are cats scared of cucumbers? I'm pretty sure it's not just me to get completely random thoughts like this when you are working, which is a lot of context switching. My solution for this issue is batching. Whenever I get a random thought, I write it down on a sticky note or my task list. Then when I have free time, I batch Google all of them at once. This way I can avoid context switching. For me, morning is the most productive time of any day because I have the most willpower left. So I try to do important tasks early in the morning, but I noticed I procrastinate a lot before getting to work by going on YouTube or Twitter. Sometimes this goes on until like 10 AM. I think it's just about a habit that I didn't even know I had until I started tracking my time. Since it's definitely a primary time thief, I've been trying to replace it with a better habit like reading 3 pages of a book or replying to messages and DMs. This is something I found really useful about time tracking. It lets you find your bad habits you weren't even aware of. A main benefit of tracking your time, I noticed, is that it makes you more conscious of how you spend your time. Because you know your activities will be on the record, it makes you pause and think whenever you get tempted to do productive things like going on YouTube. I think this is a similar reason why some people like to live stream their study or work session, because being seen by somebody else makes you more accountable. In that sense, Time Tracker is a very useful tool to resist the urge to procrastinate and keep yourself accountable. Tracking my time also seems to be helping me quit another bad habit. multitasking. I used to think being good at multitasking was something you should be proud of, so much that I have put that on my CV as my strength. But it turns out our brains are not built for multitasking. Every time we multitask, we're just dividing up our focus and dumbing down the outcomes. Therefore, doing one thing at a time is much more efficient and leads to better outcomes. In this aspect, tracking my time helps me monotask more since it shows me the data on how much I actually multitask and switch context. To be honest, there have been a few days where I just don't feel like getting out of my bed to do anything. It usually comes after a day where I work too many hours. It's not easy to avoid overworking or burnout because sometimes it seems like you have an endless amount of things to do. But tracking my time made it a little bit easier to spot red flags for burnout. Some time tracking tools like Rize gives you a notification when you are working too much or when you're working without any break for a while. It's a simple nudge, but helps me to remember have some downtime. Since I started to track my time, something I look forward to every day is to see the log of how I spend my day. When I see lots of successful focus sessions, it gives me a sense of accomplishment, which I think is a great system because you get rewarded with the feeling for focusing on your work or study. Keeping yourself motivated is hard, but tracking your time might be able to help. I do my weekly review every Sunday where I reflect on the week and prepare for the next. It usually involves a list of tasks which I covered in my previous video, but one of them is to journal about what went well, what didn't, and what I can do to make the next week better. I always find this exercise a little bit challenging just because I don't remember what I did each day of the week, but having a detailed record of my days makes it much easier to reflect and plan for the next week. It started as a fun experiment, but it ended up becoming an important part of my workflow. If you never tracked your time before, there are actually many things you can learn from it. Until recently, time tracking was tedious because you had to manually log your activities, but now you have some tools that automatically do tracking for you. If you do decide to use Rize like me, I want to give you a few tips for getting the most out of it. First of all, you should read the user guide at the beginning. Rize is simple, intuitive, and easy to use, but the user guide helped me a lot to understand how each feature is meant to be used and what you can take away from the graphs and charts. Secondly, use custom categories to get an accurate result. As Rize tracks your activities in the background, it will categorize each website and app you use, such as writing, messaging, and browsing. But sometimes these categories cannot accurately describe your activities, in which case you should create a custom category. This will make it easier to analyze your tracking result later. Also, this is optional, but I like to apply a project tag to each focus session so I can see how much time I spent on each project. For example, I spend most of my time writing many days a week, but it's not clear which writing project I was working on, so it's helpful to add labels to each session. If it's writing, it could be the title of the articles you're working on or your video script. This will give you a much more clear insight into where your time went. Finally, if you're trying to stay away from overworking, using the break timer in Rize can be handy. It's kind of like the Pomodoro timer, but it gives you a notification when you work without a break for more than a certain amount of time. For instance, my timer is set to 15 minutes, which means I get a notification to take a break if I keep working non-stop for 50 minutes. It's a simple hack, but I find it really helpful. I can go get a cup of coffee or stretch during the break and go back to work refreshed. The idea of time tracking has been around for quite a while, but it's never been so easy, mostly because you have to do it manually, which was incredibly cumbersome. But now there are much better tools that do much of the job for you. So I think it's about a good time to try one and track your time for a week or a month. You may be surprised to see there are lots of things you can learn from it. If you decide to use Rize, you can download it from the link in the description. Also, you can get a discount code from Product Hunt. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!